And today is July 16th, 2024. We are at 100 Polk Avenue in Cape Canaveral, Florida at the City Hall Council Chambers for the City of Cape Canaveral City Council Budget Workshop. We have an agenda before us. Call this meeting to order. Councilmember Willis, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and thank you all, council, for being here, city staff, and everyone who's joining us here in the chambers and online. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember Jackson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kellum?
Here.
Mayor Morrison?
Here.
Councilmember Willis?
Here.
Okay. Everyone's here. Go into the public participation portion of the meeting. I do not have any cards. If anyone intends to speak, please raise your hand. Make sure we didn't lose your card. Seeing no hands raised, for those of you who are listening online, we ask that you please virtually raise your hand. I will go ahead and unmute you and make sure you're heard. I do see one hand raised. Mr. Pat Campbell, if you intend to speak, I see your hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. Just 1 second here. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for what you do. I had brought this topic up before a couple of years ago, and I want to bring it up again. It's actually two different things. One is I would like a discussion or start a conversation at some point about participatory budgeting. There's a lot of resources out there that can explain all of it and show examples of where it works for other municipalities. And in the same discussion, I would like some conversation about spending caps at some level of forecasted expenditures. I think it either ought to be brought to the citizens for a vote or at the very least, some sort of a different approval process that gets citizens the ability to weigh in on a large expenditure and under participatory budgeting, be able to actually make some decisions about, what the priorities and where the money goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Mute back. I don't see any other hands raised. Mr. Campbell, if you don't mind, please lower your hand. Thank you very much. To make sure we are all closed out here. And with that, we'll go ahead and close public participation, bring it back to the council. Council, we got a workshop tonight, discussion item. I don't think we're taking any action in this particular meeting. Obviously, we have a 6:00 p.m. council meeting, so do my best to keep track of the time to give ourselves a little bit of a cushion so we don't roll right into the meeting. And with that, we can go ahead and kick this off. If there's no initial questions from the council, I'd like to give the floor to our city manager and maybe finance director if you choose, and we'll be ready to get started. Council, good with that? City manager?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. Welcome to the beginning of our official beginning of our budget season. The goal we want to get out of tonight is to arrive at a tentative proposed millage rate, because that's one of the items of the next agenda that we're going to have to put out there. And of course, the tentative proposed millage rate, you can always go lower than that in the future, but you can't go higher. So that's one consideration in setting that. Just as a brief overview for the audience, the council has already begun working on the preliminary part of the budget here by a couple CIP workshops, the capital improvement plan. That basically says, well, in addition to just running the city, what do we want to get done? What are the projects we want to get done? So the council has met and they have agreed on those CIPs. Some things got pushed back, some things got pulled forward, but we have that at our disposal for council to consider. And then after that work is done, the property appraiser comes to us and they say, well, here's your taxable value. In the city of Cape Canaveral, for the first time, we passed $2 billion in taxable, total assessed taxable valuation. That's remarkable. So we take different scenarios and we figure, well, with that much in taxable value, if we applied this tax rate to it, we could get all of these things done that we said we needed to do in our CIPs. So that's how we start doing the budget. And that starts with a proposed rate of 3.5790 for the general fund millage. And that's what's being proposed if we want to get all those things done. One of the things we've learned working with council, I've learned over the last couple of years, is they like to have options. So we proposed 3 options, and they're on attachment 2 to the agenda item there. Mia, if you would slide forward to that. And there are 3 general items. I can go ahead and talk about them. One of them is, it's not going to be in that document. It's going to be in the agenda packet. The first one is always we want to discuss, well, what is rollback? What would rollback look like? And rollback, what that means is, it generally means you want to get the same amount of revenue from taxes you got last year. So that's a different rate applied to that taxable valuation. And it says, well, if you do rollback, this is the amount of money you've got, and you can get everything done that you want to get done, except you're going to be short here, short there. Well, rollback rate in this case would be 3.3247 mils. Are you able to go to attachment 2? There you go. So the top one is the first option is rollback. So 3.3247 mils. That gets us the same amount of revenue as we got last year. In other words, it's not a tax increase. But there are some cuts that would have to be made. There would be a shortfall of $500,000, so we'd have to decide what to cut out to cut out $500,000. The CRA would be reduced by $258,000, and we'd have to do some actions. One example would be if we didn't do Oak Lane, that's $550,000 could be pushed out to the next year. That's just an example of something we could do. The second option we look at is what we call the middle of the road. We've learned the council likes to see a middle of the road option between rollback and the proposed rate. So right smack in the middle of those two is 3.4519 mils. Same thing we have to look at. We got to cut out $250,000 worth of things. CRA would be reduced only by $129,000, and you'd have to have some required actions to achieve. And anytime you look at these options of things you got to cut, there's tough choices to be made. For example, the tennis court resurfacing, that's a concern. We might have to, if we don't resurface it, we might perhaps have to do something else there as an emergency measure to close it off so it doesn't become dangerous with that depression that's there. Also, amenity park upgrades could perhaps be pushed out a year. Contingency would be reduced from $300,000 to $250,000, and renewal and replacement from $288,000 to $238,000. So that's the scenario for middle of the road. And of course, the third option there at the bottom, that's if we accept the proposal at 3.5790. That gets everything done we said we wanted to do in the CIP workshops. Gives us a $300,000 contingency. R&R stays at $288,000. We get the new staff IT position, we get the new IM position, we get the new code enforcement position and development services director position. Obviously, there's been some updates recently to that position, and we should talk about that in the organizational chart and if we want to fund that, Mayor, moving forward, because that could make a difference too. And then there, of course, John, thank you for putting the ARPA summary in there for $300,000 for Thurm Boulevard improvements. So that's kind of an overview of where we are, and this is the kind of time where we start talking about the hard choices about what we want to cut, if we want to go to rollback or middle of the road or anything less than the proposed rate. And that's kind of my overview there. But Mayor, before I turn it back over to the council, John would like to say just a couple words, if that's okay. John?
Mayor, council, we've had 2 meetings, and through those meetings, we've removed capital projects, right, to get to where we're at now.
and the city manager has just read the implications of whether you go with rollback, middle of the road, or if we stay where we're at. I just want to, and I'll probably be sending just a memo to council here maybe in a few days or whatever, but, and it's just to remind you of what the future holds, and I don't like to call them consequences, but in the future, it could be a consequence. And what it has to do is, I'm concerned, okay, and of course, I don't make the final determination, you all do, but I am concerned that I think council needs to be careful if they're constantly reducing taxes, especially to rollback, because every time we do that, and for the last 3 years, we keep pushing out capital projects. And my concern there is that not only that, but we also reduce our contingency and our renewal and replacement funds. But if we keep, this is all I like, the message I want to get to council. If we keep deferring capital projects, well, when will we ever get them done? We may not be able to afford them in the future, and if we are, it might require us taking out more loans because the prices went up so dramatically. So just to keep that in your foresight, because in the end, if we kept a trend, if we kept going to rollback, eventually taxes will have to be risen because we may want to get some of the capital projects done that we keep deleting and keep moving forward. And ultimately, in the end, so I think there needs to be a certain approach there to be aware and have the foresight of that, because otherwise there'll come a time when you'll have to raise taxes dramatically to make up for the shortfall, depending on if you want to get these capital projects done that we've been pushing out. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that maybe taxes could be reduced, but we do have to keep in sight the projects that we keep pushing out. And so I just wanted to make council aware of that. A few other things, and if council would go to their budget books and look at page 57 on the CRA. Everybody, when everybody's there, I received information from Jill Hayes, the Brevard budget officer. And, when we do the budget, we don't always have all the information we need, obviously, because everybody else is getting ready the same way we are. Here's all I want to bring to your attention is, this is from the budget officer at the county. The proposed general fund millage rate based on our chapter cap is 2.9207. So that's where they're at. Now, remember that the county, when they give money to the CRA, let's say our rate's 3.5 or 3.3, they still just give us 3.29. Now, when Joey and I did the budget, we were looking at last year and the intervals there. So our estimation of the county's, we're trying to guess what the county's millage is, proposed millage. It was below ours, okay? And we set it just below by $100,000, whatever. But what I'm conveying here is that this 2.9207, look at the contingency line that says 297,778. Well, the county set their proposed rate so low, it's going to cost the CRA $277,000. So that line that you look at, and I will have a memo coming to you, a few days, 7 days after this meeting on all the changes. And part of that, in that memo, will say the county contacted the city of Cape Canaveral and said, you're only getting this much based on the 2.9. So Joey and I computed that, and it's $277,000 less. So I just wanted to make you aware of that fact. The other cities are coming in with their proposed millages, and we'll be updating the book accordingly. Joey just got a list from Titusville who had accumulated most of the cities in the county. So we have their proposed. Interestingly enough, there's a number of cities that have significantly raised their millage rates. So it's just a sign of the, sign of the times, and maybe they're trying to get some of their deferred projects completed. Hard to say, every city has a different situation. And the only other thing I want to bring up is if council would please go to page 24. And if you look at, as you know, in December, council's pay will go up. And that's going to be based on that CPI when we receive that. And so those numbers will change. I just want to let you know that on page 24 where it says the mayor's pay, we'll be adjusting that. That'll be another adjustment because we're estimating what those adjustments will be, but the mayor's pay wasn't adjusted there. So in my memo, it'll also say that the mayor's pay is going to be an estimated this. And then, of course, when December comes around or early January, council will get its pay raise accordingly as voted on, whenever that was voted on a year ago or what have you. So was it 2 years ago? Time flies. So anyway, I just wanted to make you all aware of that. And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem talked to me and had caught that. And thank you. And that's what we need. And tonight when we look through things, if there's something off, we'll make all the adjustments and we'll get you a memo that shows what all the adjustments are. Also, one last thing, and I know 4 of you are aware of it, and I know Councilmember Jackson is new on the council, but when we get the estimated gross taxable value, it's one number. In this case, in the budget, you'll see $2,069,000,000. Well, actually, it's kind of nice that obviously after we get the budget done, the county, the Brevard property appraiser comes and says, okay, now here's the new number, right? And in this case, it wasn't much higher. It was $2,072,000,000, which only affected our taxes by like $9,800. So that was a good thing because then it doesn't skew what you're looking at tonight by much. Okay, $9,800. So that's all I have. Thank you. I want to give you those updates though, and then we can get off to a start here.
Thank you, City Manager. Thank you, your Finance Director and the entire team, everyone who's worked to get this far. Council, back to us. Councilmember Jackson?
Yes, and I had a question on that value that the county gave us.
That the county gave us?
Do we have any of the new properties that have received a tax abatement from the county?
No, but I think I know where you're going with that because I'm wondering why the county is coming in so low. And of course, that article was in the paper that said how they wanted to, abate taxes for new businesses and whatever to attract business in. And then, you don't need as many taxes if you could generate more revenue by having thousands of new employees, right? So, in answer to your question, the 2.9, when I saw that, I immediately thought about what you just said, and I saw that in the paper, actually, earlier this week. So I don't know where they're going to go with it. She's saying 2.9. I don't know if it's going to go higher than that, but I mean, they haven't passed theirs either, so we just have to wait and see.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Member Jackson, anything from you? Anything else at this time? Council, this is a time for us to ask any questions. Councilmember Willis, Davis, Mayor Pro Tem, no particular order.
I have some questions.
Yes, please, Mayor Pro Tem Kellogg.
Okay. I went through some questions with John and got some answers, but then I found a few other ones, just for information's sake. If we go to page 57. Professional services went from 152,000 to 400,000. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay.
What was the page? Mayor
Page
Pro Tem?
57.
Page 57. Okay.
So the increase in professional services, I was just wondering what that's for.
The 400K?
Yeah.
Yeah, and today, what we've done today is Joey, this is going to be really helpful going forward with these workshops, is Joey has his computer here that we could look at the workbooks. So I should be able to look at that workbook and tell you why that went up to 400K. And then, I don't have to memorize 1,500 lines in the budget. So that was my joke, Mickey, for the day. So I just, yeah.
So Mayor Pro Tem Kellum, your question is about the professional service fees. What is that? What makes that amount up? Is that your
Yes.
question? Okay.
Right. So what makes that up is the Presidential Streets Master Plan, the survey is estimated to be $300,000. The planning design fees for Homewood Force Main Extension is $100,000. So it's those two entities. That's what makes up that
But
number.
wouldn't the force main extension be part of stormwater or wastewater? Why would it be
If it's-
CRA?
If it's in the CRA, and I'm sure there were discussions on that to where that put it. Of course, he's not here to talk about Mr. Dickey had worked on these items. So the force main, that's where it was being, where the money was coming out of is the CRA. So that was determined, months ago. I'll say a few months ago when we did the budget. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if, Todd, do you have any input on that force main?
Is that a CIP item in the CRA?
Yeah, it's CR3. If council wants to look at CR3.
We get the page number.
125.
No, wait, the force main is not a CR item, but the presidential streets
The
is
design and,
CR3, yeah, the design is CR3,
okay, so,
which is on page 125. If you look at page 125, and this is the work that was done by staff and Mr. Dickey, the construction, the 1.3 million was the estimate based on their estimates, and then the 300K for the survey/engineering design outreach, page 125.
okay, on page 125, it shows the 300,000. If you look in this year's budget book, 23, 24, it says 300,000 budgeted for survey, engineering, design, and outreach. Is this another 300,000?
You're looking at this year's,
This current year's budget that we approved last year? I mean, yeah,
This one?
yes.
I don't believe that had taken place. I don't have last year, yes, I do have last year's budget here. Joey, bring up the
Well, I think it's
workbook,
this year's
2024.
budget that
This
we're
is, this,
operating in
Right now.
yeah.
right now.
Are you
And this
saying
would
it's
be
in this
for
year's,
next year.
are you saying it's in both your budgets?
Yes.
Well, then that means that it wouldn't be in both your budgets. That means that obviously did not get done and is being carried over or being done in the next fiscal year.
Okay.
Todd, I don't know of any presidential street redesign for 300K that was done this year.
We've got a bid coming back to council very soon.
Right.
Hopefully it's going to be within that range.
Right. But that the only thing I would know of would be the Kimley Horn $150,000 that they may be doing for that. Tim, is Tim back there? Tim, is that a presidential street? Could you come up? I think what we're trying to distinguish here, based on the Mayor Pro Tem's questions, are they two different things? Okay? And let me look at this thing here. Look at Cedar. So we got this. Okay, and then there's this. Yeah, I see this as the same thing. I see
I see it as a rollover.
I see it as a rollover too. In other words, this was put in next year's budget because we didn't foresee this happening. From what I could see, based on how this was put in by the staff that did this, that's not happening by September 30th. So it was accounted for in next year. Would you say that's accurate, Todd?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah.
We're not going to buy the same product twice.
Yeah. So, Mickey, I don't see this happening by 30 September, and therefore those costs will hit in the 24, 25.
So the one that we did for 150 through the CRA for
The Civic
the
Hub.
Civic Hub, is
That's
this?
not this.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
And we may see that a few times in this budget to where something didn't get done or isn't going to get done this year, which happens every year, and then happens in October and November the following year. And then it's put in the budget because it's forecasted that it was not going to happen.
Okay, my next question is, on page 101, the Thurm Boulevard improvements. We have impact fees and the general fund. When I look back in the budget books, and, because I just like to compare and look back on things and see where we are. In the 2019, 2020 adopted budget, there was $2,870,000 for Central Boulevard and Thurm Boulevard. And I know we did costs, it went way above budget there.
You talking about West Central?
Yeah.
Went above cost 600,000 because of all the work they did to remove the muck and transfer all those items that occurred,
Right.
yes.
Because of the soil and.
Yeah,
all
and
that.
that's where we took a hit on the CRA that year too, yeah.
And my question is, are we going to have the same problem on Thurm Boulevard, that this is the estimated amount, but when we dig in, is it going to be over budget again because of the soil and?
That is a very good question, and Tim, I don't know if that's
So
been
what I'll
determined.
do with this road that was different from what we did with Central is I'll have geotechnical data in many different areas.
Before
I-
we start?
What's that?
Before it gets started?
Yes, yes. Well, I definitely want to know what's underground. And I think the problem that we ran across on Central was we only potholed in certain areas. And it could have been 4 areas, could have been 6. I don't remember off the top of my head. Jeff was the one that managed that project. But what we do know on that side of Cape Canaveral is that they used a lot of the dredging materials to dredge the port out to build up
Right.
on that land.
I
So it's
remember
very
when they did that.
non-pervious. Yeah, so I definitely want to know what's under the ground before we start that project.
Mm-hmm.
And that project will actually increase. I had budgeted for $1,480,000, but I did put a special note in there, if I'm not mistaken, that the project most likely, we don't know how much the project will be off the top of our heads. I can get an estimated cost, but we'll know more once we get into the project.
Okay, and then is it possible to use, instead of the 280,000 out of the general fund, can we use stormwater money there because we are changing the stormwater?
Well, as it depicts here, the 280, that's coming out of IM in the general fund. So, Tim, I would have to say that's because those things, those are IM related. What's ever going to take place on that street, I'm not so sure that you could use all those funds for that. And let me just add in this too.
Therm is also on stormwater.
Yeah, on stormwater, on SW7, on page 157, in answer to your question, Mayor Pro Tem, $600,000 is being charged to stormwater for this project.
In addition to the 200.
In addition to the 280, yeah, because there is a element of infrastructure maintenance, and then there's the stormwater, and then you have the 1.2 million is the impact fees that we have.
Okay, and that was my other question. Impact fees have to be used for, can we use impact fees somewhere else, or does it have to be used?
You want to answer that,
Yeah,
Todd? or-
the impact fees that we're talking about are currently held by Brevard County. They're paid to Brevard County for transportation impact fees for hotel development. In order to get them, we have to enter into an agreement with them for a specified expenditure. We can't just change that.
Let me see. No, 1 second. Okay, we figured out the 510,000. Yeah, we figured that one out. Okay. The community, I know at the last meeting, we discussed that the $51,000 for the maintenance on the splash pad was coming out of the CRA. Where is that reflected in this budget? It's not in the operating costs for
Joe,
Parks and Recreation, or?
Look in PRCA and look in their workbook under professional fees or contract services, because I believe that we had to, that was questioned, and it was determined where that had to be moved, and we did move it, so let's take a look at that. Go to 111.
As soon as we know a page number,
Yeah, I'm gonna,
take your time. Yes, thank you.
no, it's going to be. Yeah. Okay, so go to 11. And right there. Right there, okay. And that will be in, okay. Yeah, so the splash pad, right, we did have that discussion, and the splash pad was moved to contract services in Department 11, PRCA, and that's where that resides.
Okay, and what page is that on?
That is page 41, and look under contract services, there's a line item there for 187,000, but that's probably, that's multiple.
But the
Yeah,
51,000 is in
that's where it's
contract
at.
services?
Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question is, and we talked about this, the street signs went from 6,000 to 42,000. And we were going to ask
Correct.
June what kind of
June-
signs we're getting for 42,000.
June, do you want to tell us all the beautiful signs we're getting?
What page is that on, Mayor Pro Tem?
37.
37.
Hi, Miss June.
Good evening.
Hi.
I went through this with Jessica. It was cut 1 year, and I think that was in 2021, 22, to, on mine, signs was 48, and then the next year, 22, 23, was cut down to 3,000, which is minus 94. So we were just trying to bring it up because our stocks are gone. If we have a hurricane, we hardly have any signs. So we just wanted to get the signs back up. As soon as we get it back up, we'll drop it back down.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, that's all I
And
have right now,
Mickey,
Mayor.
that's just a sign of the times, okay?
Right. Okay, thank you.
That'll grow on me. That deserved a laugh. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, I think you're good for now. Council?
Mayor Pro
Councilmember
Tem
Willis?
asked some of my questions, so I'm good for now.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Willis. Okay, thank you, Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Jackson, how are you?
A list of them, which we won't even have enough time to go through, but I'm curious on the presidential streets. Once a project, and I know it'd be projected, but once a project is started, how long will it take to complete?
And we want to give a good best guess there?
Oh, gosh, on a project like that, depending on how deep we go, what we deal with, if we're going to deal with utilities, if we're just going to do a simple top of the surface project.
I think start with like West Central. That was a very deep project and then some. How long did West Central take?
It took about a year and a quarter, I think. So a year and 3 months.
Okay, so it'd be safe to bet that we would have at least a year and a quarter for one presidential
How long
street.
it took?
I
Correct.
think so, because I think it was, I'm going to say 10 months,
Okay.
you know, because I think you always win when you're under. So I'm going to say 10 months. But yes, I would agree there that probably a year and a quarter. And this is the first presidential street that we're going to do. So we are definitely on strange, uncharted territories. So I think 1.25 years might be a good place to start,
Okay.
you know. And there's so much more to talk about there, but
And then knowing that we don't have anything really planned as far as what we would want the area to look like, but we have an idea and some proposals for the Civic Hub, how long do we think it would take to complete those projects? That project, if we had a design, once we have a design.
That project's in different phases.
Yeah, there's a stormwater phase and then there's above ground phase.
Right.
And I think we were only talking about the stormwater phase, is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's demolition involved there. There's impact to facilities. There's,
Say about a little bit less than a year. I'd
Yeah.
say about 12 months, 11 months.
yeah, and those, I mean, a presidential street and that project could be going on concurrently possibly too, depending on what council
Yeah.
approves.
right. Okay, so how many months again, city manager?
12 months, I think, is
12
what we're
months
comfortable with.
For the stormwater
Just the
portion.
stormwater component.
Okay. And, all right.
Now, that would include the demolition, the removal of everything, which I believe was possibly not racquetball, I'm sorry, shovelball courts, wherever we decide, you guys decide that y'all want the underground chambers, the prepping
Right.
and all that stuff.
And y'all know I'm worried about stormwater. I don't
Yeah.
have to tell you this, because we've got a lot of our money tied up from CRA in this. And what does our CRA look like as far as funds, John, for projects? How are we
well,
looking with it?
currently, if we look at this, you know, it's all predicated on how soon you think we would get to the initial phases of, I guess, design of the presidential streets and what's involved. Because right now, you look in the CRA, we got $1.3 million. And will we spend $1.3 million in this upcoming year? Well, possibly, but I can't tell you the phases on how the project's going to run. But it would seem that $1.3 million, and Todd, I guess you probably agree that's probably a good number that gets us off and going. I don't know where it goes from there. We haven't, there's been no study or anything about that. But in terms of, your question is, what kind of funds do we have?
I think she's also asking what's the projected revenue for the CRA for next year?
The projected revenue, Joey, what is the number now that we're 2.9? It's 277 lower. Okay, so, and I'm gonna just do this here. 2, 6, 8, 3. Okay.
Revenue would be about $4 million.
So, yeah, we're looking at about about $4 million.
And then there's pledged revenues out of that?
Well, in terms of the debt service is $858,000. So that plays into it. Now, what's going to affect that number,
What was the debt service? I'm sorry.
the debt service, it's on page 57, it's $858,000. That's the loans we're repaying. On page 57. Now, because of what the county set their proposed rate at 2.9, so we'll be around 4 million for revenue. And then, of course, when council votes on where they want to set the millage, then that's going to have the effect that the city manager had read before, where if you go middle of the road, then take $129,000 off that 4 million. And if you go rollback, take $258,000 off that 4 million. Okay? So you got about $4 million to play with if you went in with this right now. And that's what the deduction of why, when the county's setting their thing too low. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know on that, on how that was impacted. Okay. And then I have some comments on individual items, Mayor. Do you want me to?
Go for it.
Okay. All right. On the art installations at intersections, I know that's not very much money. However, I'm curious, did we look at accident rates for these kinds of things? Because right now we're having problems with e-bikes and golf carts and bicycles that don't necessarily watch where they're going when they're in town visiting. And I'm worried about distracted drivers. I'm seeing more and more of that and increases of that since we've had increased traffic and visitors to our area since the pandemic. So I'm curious about that. I'm curious about what kind of costs we're looking at going forward, because we're also increasing the number of e-vehicles that we have in the area, and the tires have more road pollution on those. So I was wondering, have we looked at any of those things as we look at doing this? I'm worried about art being in the middle of intersections, and it's because of what I'm seeing in our city. So that's one thing I was curious about. And I don't know, Molly might be able to answer those things.
I think this is CR4, this is more of a Lexi's a project manager on that particular item, so she probably could speak best for that.
So this is CR4. Do we know the page?
Page 126.
Thank you.
It's not much money, but as we look at what we're doing in this budget, this is one thing that just,
You have a concern?
yes,
I think if you I don't know how many of these you have, but we can at least flag these
okay. Flag this one,
as just questions or concerns about it.
yes. Flag this one. Also, flag the Cape Center Battery Storage Project, which is IM 10.
I am 10, and if we can get, yes.
Could I
John.
make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
Based on Councilmember Jackson's list, if you would want to, for the sake of time, send me that list on the ones you want to flag, and I will get the project officers associated with that, and we'll get your questions answered, and then we'll go ahead and reply to the whole council on what transpired with those.
Okay,
And I
that's
think that-
perfect, because I
that
have
good?
several of them with
Yeah.
several of the items that we have from the CIP.
Yeah.
And, you know, if we're looking at the budget, they impact
Yeah.
the budget. And so I want to know how we have determined that, because we didn't get to pull it out during the last two CIP workshops and really talk about it. So, and I do have a list right here, and I've typed out my concerns, so it'll be easy to get to you. Just because even if it's low-hanging fruit, we want to make sure, I want to make sure as a council person that we're spending our money in the places that I think we need, and I'm concerned about stormwater.
Yeah, and Councilmember Jackson, you'll then, by doing it this way, you'll get firsthand the justification as to why we ended up there. And like I said, we'll get the project officers involved. Mayor, is that okay with you?
Yes, if okay with you, I think we got the first two, just so the council can become familiar with the names of them. If you don't have page numbers, that's okay, but if you don't mind, before we wrap up, just saying a few of them that you choose, so we can be mindful of them. And
Okay. One was the art installations, the other was the,
Page 126.
yeah, the Cape Center Battery Storage Project. CED one, which I think is really necessary, that's the reevaluation of that plan, but I'm wondering if we should, instead of spending that huge amount, if we should take a look at doing a survey ourselves first, simply to get a feel for what our citizens want. Then,
that was CED 1?
yes.
Okay.
CED 3, how much protection will we get on the shoreline on that one? PRCA 1, I wanted to find out what type of golf cart, as far as, are we looking at this for passenger or utility? I can get that to everyone on the list. And then the other one was PRCA 12, because that one, we literally have that one with multiple things going on at this one, with that one. It's such a great little area that's on the memorial in between Canaveral Sands and Royal Mansions. We have golf carts all over there right now, but the main thing that is a new development is that it's now on Google Maps and MapQuest as a memorial. So we need to make sure that we are addressing that before we move it forward as far as what we need to do. So those are some of the ones that I was looking at, and that's the way I looked at it, because I wasn't as aware of the budget last year to compare like you all would have done.
Mr. Mayor,
Great questions. Yes, Councilmember Willis.
I want to be sure that Finance lets us know on the grants that are applied to any of these. So that, because that will help, because for instance, the one on the battery storage, that was a 75% grant. out of that. So, that will color everything.
Right. So, Councilmember Jackson, so if you send me an email with your list, I will get the
And I want to,
directors and the project, whoever the project officer is for that. And they
Yes.
can answer your questions firsthand, and that allows me and Joey then to update anything that might change, and they'll be orderly that way.
and just so you know, on the battery storage project, the concern I have is that we just bought a $50,000 Tiger Dam for that building, and we're building it out like it's going to be the building for an emergency response type of center, but we're having to protect it. And so is that really practical in a disaster, having one that's, I think they said 1,800 feet from the mean high tide line, be our emergency backup if we were in a disaster? So that's one reason that I had pulled it out to question. It's not necessarily the money, it's the location I'm questioning, just so you know, and so the team knows.
Thank you. It sounds like a good plan.
And the other thing, one last question I had, and that is, I would like to get a list of any grants that we counted on last year in our budget that we did not receive, any type of money that we thought we were getting that we didn't, just to make sure that we have a handle on any that may not have gone through.
Okay, I'll get with staff and we'll get the answer to that question.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, we're at 5:52 PM. Let's talk about just the schedule briefly, as we're nearing the end. Our next meeting, so we got our workshop, we'll have a public hearing, first reading on the millage rate tonight. And obviously we'll have another reading there. But as far as the next time we're going to get together on this budget, when will that be?
You need to vote on it because it's if needed.
Okay.
That you approved in November.
I think that would be the best thing for us to focus on now, is determining that. So that schedule was, I think, provided, I saw it.
Page 17, Mayor, in the budget.
Thank you very much. Page 17 in the budget book.
August 6th,
Yep,
that
So-
would be the date.
that's the one that we reserved.
Yes.
And city clerk is telling us is that the tentative one that we need to make a final decision on?
No, you're wanting another budget workshop, correct?
Well, I don't, I think,
Because
I
on
can
the,
speak for myself.
on the schedule, if needed, it would be August 20th at 5. And then the first budget hearing is September 3rd.
Okay, I'm going to have to do that one more time. So the August 20th budget workshop,
Is at 5.
and that one's scheduled and approved. There's no action we need to do on that one.
It says if needed, because in the past, some councils have decided we don't need a second budget workshop. We can go straight to the first budget hearing. So you need to, I think, just get a consensus that you're going to go ahead and have the workshop.
I think you're holding up the official one that we
Yeah.
approved. I think
Do you want it?
John's referencing the one in the budget book.
I can pull it up.
I don't see if needed on this one, but I think I got it.
Yeah, I don't, that's the proposed budget
Yeah.
book. If they don't have their dates correct,
Yeah. Well, I spoke with the city manager on this. Todd, do you want to talk to the mayor about August 6th, or do you want me to?
Yeah, the August 6th would be the ideal date for us. If it's later that month, I know you're going to be out of the country for a while, so limited on staff, but also if it gets too late in the month when you get back,
It's probably not on the official schedule, but it was put in the budget.
if, it comes too late in the month, when you get back upon your return, there's not enough time to do any changes to the budget then. Want me to pass this down?
While we're figuring this out, is there a desire to have another workshop? I would like to. Thank you very much. So,
I know they're tiny.
and we obviously need
Is-
you there and your
Right.
help. And so if your schedule, if we need to move it, we
Is-
can to fit.
Could that be voted on in this meeting for August 6th?
If that
Or no?
works.
Because
Yeah.
I will ask council if they can do that, because I will be out of the country and on August 20th, and, I have Joey here, and I prefer that, Joey's new at this and his first swing at it, so I'd like him to be here with him. And then when council makes these changes, then before I get on the plane, Joey could have all the changes up to that date. And then we have the first hearing September 3rd, and then we'll be ready for council, and we'll have a nice new book for them to look at, because we might just print out a whole new book for you if there's substantial changes. Okay?
Thank you. So August 6th is the requested best date for
Yes.
everyone to be here? City clerk? Good?
Are you all good? Okay.
Council, any issues with that date?
At what time?
I will be unavailable.
Okay.
I may be able to call in, but I can't guarantee that at this point.
That's important. Is there one more option? It sounds like we could do that, but we wouldn't have Councilmember Willis.
I'm available through August 12th. I'm available through August 12th.
Well, I think it's wise for us to definitely take the 6th, but do our best to make sure we can have everybody here.
Well,
And I'm
I won't-
totally
I won't-
flexible.
I won't be here.
For the 6th is
I-
absolutely.
Yeah, I won't be here, but I will make every effort to call in.
If that's okay with you, I think it would.
Well, I understand the importance of John's schedule, and I'll make every effort. So-
Okay.
And Councilmember Willis, you could call me from wherever you're at, or even before that, and I could answer all your questions and give you copies of whatever you need.
Yeah, I know.
Councilmember Davis, how does that date work for you? Councilmember Jackson? Mayor Pro Tem, August 6th?
Yes, that's fine. It's August, there's August 13th, too. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know if that's,
I'm
would be
not-
better for,
I'm not here.
oh, you're not here, okay. When are you leaving?
August 13th, the night of August 13th.
Okay, so the
So
August,
August 6th, it's going to have to be then.
so do we need to confirm the 6th, or this has the 7th?
Are you referring to where the arrow is?
I don't see August 6th anywhere on
Oh,
this.
It's not gonna be.
Very light.
In the light blue in between, just above August 20th.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So the August 6th, 7th?
That's to let you know that it's reserved already.
Got it.
So
Let's
what
go ahead and
time?
lock that in.
What time?
Staff, what time works for,
5:01?
is earlier? But I mean,
We could go earlier,
I think that
4:30?
might be not too early for.
4:30.
4:30 works.
But you would be able to make it.
Well, if we need to move it further out to fit, that's fine, but,
My schedule will be out.
okay. Let's shoot for
4:30?
4:30 for now
Okay,
and lock that in, and then if we need to adjust it for whatever reason,
okay.
at least we take advantage of this. So do we need to take that as a vote? That
Consensus? Yeah,
consensus.
consensus
Good.
is fine.
consensus, any opposed?
We have
None?
consensus. We have
4:30
consensus.
PM,
Very good.
August 6th, budget workshop. With that, we are out of time for this one before we head into our council meeting. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Don't we have to-
Second it.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. We just need the one.